welcome to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing White Christmas. We saw this production at Sheffield Crucible on the 5th of January 2024. Based on the Paramount Pictures film, White Christmas is a Sheffield Theatre's production of Irving Berlin's most famous Christmas film, directed by Paul Foster from the original stage production by Walter Bobby, and written for the screen by Norman Krasner, Norman Panama and Melvin Frank. Music and lyrics by Irving Berlin, and book by David Ives and Paul Blake. So Richard, what's it all about?
Former soldiers turned successful showbiz duo Bob and Phil are on the lookout for a new act. On meeting singing sisters Betty and Judy, they are immediately smitten. When the four wind up performing a gig together at a remote Vermont ski resort, they discover that the hotel is owned by the boys' old army commander, but the place is on the verge of bankruptcy thanks to an unseasonal lack of snow. Can the talented foursome transform the lodger's fortunes in time for Christmas? And will the snow start to fall?
But first, our post-show opinion!
A great way to tip-tap into Christmas.
A wonderful Christmas production. So with all that said, let's
Set the scene!
So Richard, here we are again to record another edition of Upstage Downstage. So, White Christmas. What have you got to say for it? Oh, we normally set the scene, don't we?
Are we setting the scene, or are we just going to ramble?
Well, we can ramble, we can set the scene. I've still got a cold, so bear with.
Oh, there's always some...
So as we walked into the auditorium...
Oh, stealing my scene. Go on. Yeah,
No,
your turn.
No, I'm just prompting you, because you're faffing about on you.
I'm just getting the picture up. So the Crucible is a thrust stage, so basically the audience are all the way around the stage. And no, they're in a square. It's more of a hexagonal, really.
So we're dotted around this stage.
Yeah, and what we could see was basically a few items of household items, as in a sofa and a TV, a lampshade, and a table and chairs, and then at the back of the stage there was a upright piano and a fridge, which was quite oversized, really. It was a bit bigger than a normal fridge at the time, and basically one balcony and then a staircase up to two doors that you could see from above the stage, just to give some height. And it was clear that there was just two screens at the back that just like you could tell that I think the band were upstairs, basically the same as when we saw Miss Saigon. So the actual audience, the cast can actually enter in from underneath the.
I'm sorry, you're struggling here, aren't you?
I am. Will you help me?
All right then. Okay. So as you've said about the fridge freezer, it was actually a false front of the American huge fridge freezer, which was actually placed upon part of the flat, so that allowed entrances and exits off stage and on stage.
Yes,
as
it
well.
did.
And above there was a tiny little balcony, which had no grand steps like the other side had, but it did have some kind of steps coming down.
Had a wooden ladder.
Related,
a wooden laddery thing, didn't it?
On to one side. Both doors were at the top on either side were of the same design but different colours. They were quite fluorescent to begin with.
Yeah.
One was like a bright green, the other was a bright orange, and the whole opening scene was just that of purple lights, just to dull everything down as like a basic covering.
Yeah, and it was obvious there was a revolving stage within the floor, because you could tell that obviously things would start moving at some point, but with this being a thrust performance, as in it's within the audience, so they would have moved the production round so everybody got to see it, really.
So if you have stuck with us so far in this edition of the podcast and you're a bit confused as to what the heck we're talking about, there are pictures online.
Yeah, there will be.
Maybe we'll get better at this description, Mark.
We don't do bad. I think this
you
one,
know,
this one, I suppose
almost 60 episodes
really
in.
setting the scene for this one. There's it all happens throughout the production rather than the initial view of what you see.
Yes, so it starts building up. Now, at the very beginning, I remember this one. A little girl comes out of that fridge freezer.
As you do.
As you do. I wish I could use mine.
I know. I mean, some days. I mean, it is rather warm, so it is nice to.
It's warmer
just
in my
hop in
fridge
the
than it
freezer.
is in the house.
Yeah.
So yeah, she exited the fridge freezer as per every little child would. I think, did she have some food or did she have a drink or something?
I think she had a drink.
She bought something. She walked along. She turned the TV on, unless that was already on. I can't remember now. But then
she turned the TV on.
Yeah, she turned it on. That was positioned in the centre of the stage, and then she went and sat. Well, she lied down on the couch.
Yes.
And then she seemingly went to sleep as the TV started playing. And what we saw at the very back was the screens parted, which then turned into like a fake TV screen, large scale. And we had these three actors play the army.
Yeah,
I can't think of the guy's name. It was Bob, Phil, and one of the other people. They're all basically in the army camps or whatever, and they're singing White Christmas, I think, to begin with.
Yeah.
No, it was another song. It was another Christmas song they were singing.
Yeah, was it Happy Holiday?
Happy Holidays. No, I'll Be Home for Christmas or something. No, not yet. Oh yeah, maybe it was Happy Holiday. Yeah. Oh well, I'm sure it was the overture. It was something in there. It
was basically setting the scene that they were on the home. They were out on the front.
But but that's what the girl was watching. So we saw it like in large scale time.
Yeah.
And then they had a couple of not the sisters, but then a couple of girls later on come in to perform some kind of commercial, which was all bright coloured.
Yeah, it was like a washing powder commercial, just to give the elements of that you're actually watching TV and it's gone to a commercial break.
Yeah, you know. And throughout the whole set, the show, the whole set evolved. You had a lot of things coming on. Later on, you had a train. Then there was a lot of tables and chairs, and a grand piano. Even more grand staircase came out.
Yeah, there were staging pieces that actually filled up the area and the space that we were talking about with your Las Vegas style lit up staircases and things that appeared from underneath it and around it, and so a grand piano as well, and there was a lot of things that.
So a lot of these things just come on throughout the production, and then even around the sides of the show was a wooden structure which resembled the bomb which came into play in Act 2.
Yeah, that was hidden underneath.
So that flew up.
But I suppose as well, and I think what I would say is special mention is the fact that the set all fit together and all perfectly lined up, and it wasn't like something had been bought just to fill a gap. Everything felt designed for this production, so I think that was well done in that sense, really.
I think you're quite right there. Everything was well utilised.
Well, yeah, but I think
really
little things like the sofa, just a small mention on the sofa. It might seem like a little thing, but that split in two and became two chairs for the next scene.
Did it?
Yeah, because it split into two, and then they put the lamp between it and put the rack of costumes, and it became the other scene. So they didn't carry it off in the same way. So but you wouldn't have noticed that when you walk in. It just looked like it's a sofa with two cushions.
That's right.
So it joined together really well. Where when they split it, I think that was everything on stage was there for a reason, and they didn't overdo it in that way. So.
And they also brought down a bench for like an outside scene, which was hanging up in the air as well.
Yeah.
Along with, at the very end, they turned this platform that they danced on into some kind of like Christmas tree effect with baubles on and everything. So
or do like a good bauble.
Sorry, I coughed over that joke. Well, that meant to have been a joke.
You coughed over the fact that I liked a good bauble.
I coughed over your baubles, that's correct.
Yes.
Now, moving on. Or should we stay for a little bit on the whole set?
We can stay for a little bit, yeah. Because you want
I don't mean like physically. I mean, we're
going to sit on
we
it.
Could talk. We could talk a bit more on it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to mention?
Well, I suppose for me is the simplicity of the train scene, the riding the carriage scene, the way that was put together using the revolving stage. I thought was really good in the sense of it was just really a selection of trolleys, like sort of seats on dolly wheels that just got locked into place. But they've got luggage racks on them, and they were you instantly knew what was happening.
Yes.
That there's a travelling scene, and it felt very authentic of the style of the era as well. And I think that was the key thing as well.
And also, when it went into that production number, the way it was placed onto the stage, with it being a revolve, it was a revolve within a revolve.
Yes, it was.
So when they had all four of those sections laid out, the revolves each span different way round.
Yes.
So that could break up the carriages, and we could all see from each angle.
Yeah,
the audience members could see different sides going on, whilst still retaining the fact that they were all in a linear.
It didn't detract from. It didn't detract from that. Yeah.
No, it just broke it up, filled the space, and we saw this great dance number with that.
Yeah,
and then it all came back together to all line up, and then they all took them off.
And I think it was a little thing with the luggage racks that instantly gave height to that space where they were putting things above. And it felt authentic, and there wasn't. Not everybody got the same suitcase. Not everybody got the same type of luggage. So it looked mismatched in the right way. So you felt natural rather than it being.
But I'd also add they could equally have done it without.
Yes, of course.
This is clearly an example of where adding extra detail makes it a lot more memorable and works a lot more effectively.
Yeah, because you can
by having those luggage racks above, it does make it more it does stand out.
Yeah, especially when you've got a height on stage where you've got plenty of space to use. You don't have to. You're not short of. You're trying to create something from quite a blank stage area. You've got to create life, and that's the thing. Yeah,
more space within a space.
Yeah,
and I think had it have just retain the seats alone,
yes,
I think that would have been a bit monotonous because there was plenty of seats.
Yeah, of course.
Seatology going on within this production anyway.
Yeah, and you either go over the top or you don't, and you can't really go halfway. And I think this was an example of, you've got to just go for it to make the most of it.
Yeah, I mean, they could have gone even further.
And they could.
Sides to the carriages, but again, if it's not adding anything to it and it's taking it away, then don't have it. And this is, they didn't need that.
No.
And that particular theme just worked perfectly.
No, and I think there's, when I talked about the fact that they designed the set so it all slotted together and fit well, things like the grand piano, even if it may not have been a real grand piano.
There was a half a grand piano.
Yeah,
I think.
And I think even if it was created using an electric piano in there without it being a real grand piano, it looked luxurious and it looked right for the scene. It didn't detract. It didn't look like they'd scrimped on that set piece. It gave the same look.
Even the upright piano.
Yes, exactly.
I was wondering, is that a real one, or I knew it had been doctored because the sound didn't sound like it's coming from there. But then equally, when they were playing the notes, I was watching the hand movements. I'm thinking, but they're hitting the right notes.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't believe the sound's coming from there. It's being supported. However, what I would say is, what they did for this upright piano, they doctored it so it could fold over to become a bureau.
Yeah, which was brilliant
at the hotel. So it doubled up. That's another example of a perfect prop set item, which can be duplicated
and used for
something else. A bit like the fridge freezer as well.
Yeah,
they didn't necessarily need a fridge freezer.
No,
but it's a good example of putting something there which could be used throughout to fetch and carry stuff, and also is a doorway to exit instead of it just being a normal door.
And also, if you look at the original film, where when they go to the hotel, the counter is that sort of size. It's not a big, grand... We didn't have computers in those days. They didn't have big items to put on there. It was a small, quite... It was an area that people used to check people in. So it didn't have to be this massive reception desk that you may see now in big hotels. This was a lodge hotel in the middle of nowhere, and it worked really well. And it's similar to a similar style that I've seen used in Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, where they had a street light come out of the actual the upright piano. So it's a very similar thing. So when they went to Narnia, a street light came out of the piano that they were using for the previous scene. Piano, yeah. Piano.
Is that your
piano?
Any key and
The
you get
grand
a different
piano.
colour pie? Your different flavoured pie? Right?
Yeah. But yeah, so it was a different use, but it equally, it just makes the set look confident that you haven't got to then lug something else off to bring something else on. It just flows. It makes the scene change look so much more to the point, and it also means the cast can easily change that. If you're the person working behind the counter, there's no harm in you doing that change, or it just makes that look so much better.
Improved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it means there's thought gone into the scene change process rather than curating a load of furniture for this time and place, when actually some things can be used more than once to create that space, really.
Agreed. And also the centre of it, when that opened up to be the TV screen, there was another sort of screen above as well. I don't know if that got used a lot, but it was used once when the men were up there dancing with their partners in a later scene, and then did it all disappear for when they brought the grand piano out with the stairs?
Yeah, it did.
Because they had the steps going up to the top, didn't they?
Yeah.
So that got changed as well.
Yeah. I think there was one thing you talked about with the actual TV set where
TV set or the screen?
The big TV.
The big one.
The big one. You did comment on the actual how much it protruded, it just took your sight lines were actually reduced because it protruded too far out of the back of the stage.
Oh, on what you mean?
We were sitting.
Yeah, we were sat around the sides,
and obviously because it's this production is for a lot of people to see from a side view. If that was just recessed a little bit further back, everybody would have seen the TV a bit more.
I think they had to bring it out because of the side wings there with the fridge and piano. They were already encroaching, or whatever the word is, into the audience members of the side.
Yeah,
so they couldn't see anyway. But then with that screen coming out even further, so a lot more people could see, still they couldn't see from the sides as well. I think that's what you were.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, because I thought we still can't see it as I mean, we can see it a little bit better, but the people further...
Yeah, where we were sat, we'd got enough, but any further and you'd have just, see nothing.
Which made me wonder why they did it in that way. Why couldn't they have just had a flat wall?
Yeah.
And then everyone could have really seen.
Or bring from above what looked like a screen that was just a thin perimeter of the TV, so you could see behind the TV. So if you were on the side, yes, you wouldn't have seen it through the TV, but you would have seen the people. Maybe that could have worked as well.
Yeah, or they could have pre-recorded it with projections.
They could have, yeah,
maybe. But anyway, we digress into something fanciful.
Fanciful, or it could have even been above. That may have worked as well.
No.
As in the TV screen could have been on the higher level.
Oh.
Maybe.
Up there.
Yeah. But then that wouldn't
but then you've got the balcony as well, casting a shadow there. Anyway, moving on now. So let's talk about the direction, shall we? The direction and the writing.
Yep.
Oh. We always do this. Whenever we move on, it's like...
shall we?
Have you seen the film recently?
Yeah, I have.
Recently?
Yeah,
Okay. I've recently seen The Holiday Inn,
yes,
so we could probably compare
yeah.
either as well. I can't speak properly.
It's all right. It's interesting because I'm just
Watching it now?
no, I was just reading. I was just reading who it was written by, and it looks like they've
The writing of this pretty much stuck to the original film production.
yeah.
What did you make of the film?
I think it's pretty linear in its storyline. It's not it's not groundbreaking.
No, it's very much a copy of The Holiday Inn with different people. And that's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
this sort of centres around one song that's been made famous and probably known by pretty much everybody. It's one of those staple Christmas songs now.
Yeah, I mean, the Why Christmas starred in Holiday Inn first time round, and that was again about them finishing the, people in the war,
Yeah.
being entertainers. One
Yeah.
person, splitting up the double act. One of them going to take on a hotel,
A bit like the Vera Lynn of
and
this
the other
country.
one, and the other one wanting to go off and seek stardom, and then there's like girls involved and so on and so forth, and then the place that they're looking after is running into financial trouble, and they need to bring backers of people in to this.
It's almost
hotel
very
thing,
much
so-
the same then.
Pretty much.
Funny that.
And I think the White Christmas has more of a military stance to it.
Yeah.
That one than the Holiday Inn did, if I can recall. I don't.
Yeah, I think there was more focus at the start of this film. It was more of a showing those out on the front, and their struggles, and the fact that this was the contrast between the two almost.
Now, I don't think we should be here to necessarily pick apart the script of
No,
the production, because it's a family favourite. Well, it's
an
a favourite
established one,
for the Christmas period.
yeah,
But what did you make of the direction of this piece? Because I thought it was really well directed. I thought the not just the acting segments within it, but the musical numbers were choreographed exceptionally well.
yeah, completely. I think the pace of the production had been worked on so much because there wasn't really any drop in time. You felt like it was moving scene to scene really well, and everybody was directed in such a way that everybody took part in getting ready for the next scene or moving stuff off. If somebody walked off stage, they walked off with a handful of something for then the next people to be ready to do their next scene. There was no...
What's this? You go
I'm
around
just
your
trying
head.
to- I don't know. I'm just on I'm a helicopter.
No, don't say that on podcast. They'll get the wrong impression of what you're swinging around.
Well,
he'll swinging his head around.
that's a
I mean,
different
the one on
type
his
of
shoulders.
podcast. And surely you'd want to see it.
Dear me.
Yeah, so for me, it was more it was directed in such a way that the focus was always... There was a lot happening all at once, and you had to... Which works for this type of show. I mean...
Well, it's a big stage, so you got to fill it, I think. And
yeah, and I mean...
not all the time, but with an ensemble piece.
Yeah, exactly. But not just that, I think one of the things of these classic films and movies of this era is we draw reference to it, but also a lot of these films and movies were written and made almost like theatre productions in those days. Everything was set on a set, but everything almost drew focus in the same way you would in a theatre production. The line crossed a lot. They didn't expand the world outside of a soundstage, so everything was generally in the same place at all times. So they utilised a lot of these scenes within the same set a lot of the time. So whereas and these were big Broadway musicals, but they made...
Are you on about the recording of the film itself?
Yeah,
the original
I'm
film?
just talking. A lot of it
because
draws from theatre in those days. A lot of the sets were made in the same way that you'd make a set for a stage.
Well, they recorded any outdoor scenes that they did need inside.
Yeah.
Inside the lot.
Yeah, but it was what I mean is as well. They a lot of it was in a similar like the production we saw was it took a nod from that where scenery and set was built perfectly for it and everything worked, and I think that nod to that era matters if you bill a production that it's based upon a Paramount Pictures film. If you write it in the programme, you've got to know that you're nodding to that rather than taking away from that.
Is it a nod to that way of doing it, or is it just producing the play in a classical manner in which
maybe
Paramount did it as well?
Yeah.
What I like to pick up on is when you said about them utilising the whole stage, and you saw everything cracking off. One indicative scene springs to mind, and that's the bit where they're in the pub or the club. When, I think they're about to do
the CD
Sisters.
club, the one that's not as...
Yes, and you had someone playing the piano, the upright piano.
Yeah.
You had somebody taking a drinks order. You had a couple of people sat around. You had the ladies coming in, checking the handbags, and putting a little bit of makeup on or doing a bit of a dance.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of things happening on set. So whilst Phil and Bob were talking, and then the two sisters were talking, Judy and what's-her-face, were talking on the top side of the stage, and others coming on and off. You had conversations going on. So one person was selling ice cream or popcorn or something. I can't remember what he was selling, but he was selling something to a lady on the other side. And then you had someone taking the drinks order, making the drinks, someone playing the piano. And then you even had like a little bit of a band section behind that, the brass, playing that and talking about different things, and you could hear them like just having whispered conversations, not just going rhubarb.
Yeah, exactly.
They was actually having conversations,
and it also felt you could feel the characterization of all those other people. You didn't feel like it was just the ensemble sitting there. You felt like you'd got the different people in a bar. But also, you got the like one with maybe a cigar in hand, and one that just likes to sit in there and watch and drink a cocktail, or you didn't feel like everybody was just sat there just to fill a space.
No, but it made it an immersive piece of theatre because you were in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
Like 3D esque.
It made you look round the stage rather than at one
you
thing.
didn't necessarily have to pay attention to what the people at the front were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though that was the main narrative.
Yeah.
You could switch off and
it felt
pick
deeper.
up.
It felt like there's a depth.
Yeah,
to
you could narrow in the zone as to, I'll focus on those people, what they're doing over there, and just see what they're doing, and so which I did a lot of.
And it felt like a smoky bar. It felt like that sort of jazz, but it gave you that feeling that you'd gone into that space.
Yes, absolutely. And even down to the tap dancing number, there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the whole ensemble.
Yeah, there's a few tap bits, weren't there?
There was a lot of tap bits going on. Especially the special scene where I think Phil's on top of the piano doing that. And that was a bit precarious. Yeah. Jumping on and off that with his shoes that could potentially slip. Oh, I was very worried for that actor. I hope it was all the worst case scenarios that could happen.
I hope the top was a matte finish rather than shiny finish.
Oh God, you've gone there, haven't you? You stooped to conquer, haven't you?
Of course.
Of course. Now, is there anything else we need to talk about in terms of the direction, or do we pick any more scenes to bits? Because we've already discussed the train scene, which is quite good.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything other than. I mean, I would say I think the musical numbers were directed well as well, because it's not just about the acting. It was actually going from getting the choreography right as well as making it feel like it's part of the production. It's very difficult to meld it all together and create a performance that feels because it did feel seamless from one scene to another, in the sense of it wasn't like, and now we're going to do a tap scene, or and now we're going to sing a song. It just felt like it blended from one thing to another without you didn't really see the lines, you didn't see the stops and starts and those things, when it came to costume changes or things like that. And also when you're doing tap scenes, if you're not careful, you can start hearing the taps everywhere when people are standing off stage or waiting to go on, and all those things matter as well, because the distractions you don't need. But there was none of that in this. The tap scenes happened, and it was like they did come out of nowhere, which was the right way to do it, rather than
the wrong way.
You didn't need. You did, for me, if you know people are waiting or wandering around and you can hear it, because if you're doing a tap scene, you're going to have noise somewhere. It just. I think they directed it in a good way for those scenes as well. There wasn't,
Maybe the taps were pre-dubbed.
Yeah,
Maybe they didn't have taps.
I've seen that
at all.
before.
It was all.
I've seen it done.
Oh.
But it's when you watch the feet and see whether their feet match the dubbing. And I've seen things like that, where you're watching the feet going, well, those feet are moving, but they're not tapping at the right time.
Oh.
So I have seen it done. So, but yeah, what I'd always say is watch their feet and see if it matches, because that's a giveaway. So they might have tapless shoes, but there's probably somebody at the back with some coconuts.
What, for the horses?
Yeah, they're in it as well.
Tap dancing horses.
Yeah, they're in it as well. Yeah.
Oh, are they? Watch the people at the back with the coconuts.
Or what they sometimes do is they only have so many people that are confident in tapping with taps on their shoes, and the others don't. That's happened before.
Taps?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want the boiling one, it hurt.
What, they got a boil? Never mind. Oh, we're going into the realms of silly now.
I know.
Right.
It's a bit corny.
Oh, vile. Right then. I think we're done here.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're here for the drama. Richard, there's quite a lot of people we need to address here with the acting, because I thought it was a splendid
Undress
cast.
or address?
There's quite a few I know you'd like to undress.
Well, there is you two, but
You two? I don't think Bono was in the production.
Bono, no, Bono wasn't there.
No. So our stars of the show were George Blagden as Bob.
Yes.
We had, let me just turn the page. We had Stuart Neal as Phil.
Yeah.
We had Natasha Mould as Judy.
We did. And Grace Moat
as Betty. With Sandra Marvin as Martha.
Yeah.
Who played the innkeeper, receptionist. And we also had the sergeant, Ewan Cummings as General Waverley. Alongside... ... We had Craig Armstrong as Ezekiel. And Charlie Booker played a couple of roles, but he was quite pinnacle in some of them.
Yes.
And I would say, Charlie Booker, my first shout out would be to him for stealing the blooming show
Totally.
all the time with his very stressed out stage manager.
Yes.
When it comes to organising the production in the second half.
And also a quick change artist.
Exactly.
Because the amount of times he ran off stage and came back in as his Mike character was just phenomenal.
I don't know how that moustache stayed up.
Honestly,
frailing.
He must have had a row of moustaches waiting off stage to put him on just in case he lost one. Well,
exactly. Yes.
But yeah, honestly, he was so in character, and one minute you realise actually he's in the ensemble dancing, and the next minute he's walking out of another entrance.
It took me a while to think.
What?
It took me a while to think. Am I seeing double? Is this actual? Is
Are
this
the
the same person?
Or have we got twins?
Or have we got? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
brilliant.
I quite liked him a lot.
But he captivated when he came in as his stage manager. He just, you knew he was on stage.
A very good character actor there.
Yeah, he was straight away.
Complete two different characters.
Definitely.
Both believable, both strong.
Yeah.
And both, even though the ensemble one, he was doing various characters there, it was more of the stage manager that you wanted to see more of.
Yes.
Because of his sort of like...
I think every time he came on stage, you were like, oh, here we go again. And it was like...
It just brought the humour.
It just brought that humour. At the moments where you needed that, like, chaos, he brought it.
Yeah.
And
It wasn't overtly camp, but
No.
it was quite camp enough in those days
Yes.
for you to know what side of the fence he's sitting on. But
I
at
think-
the
I think
same
as-
time, for it to be quite not enduring, but what's that?
His mission was to make sure that the production went ahead throughout the whole production, and you just saw his stress levels go up, down, left, right, everywhere. And that, yeah, like you say, that level of campness, that it was part of his character, but he was also on a mission all the time, you know.
Like Gabriella Chilme on a mission. Endearing, that's it.
Well, you've recorded it now. You've got endearing somewhere. You just shove it in some.
Yeah, I felt he was very endearing as a character. Very lovable. We also have, which I've said before, George playing Bob. He was very much... Yeah, I could actually believe him as being the Bing Crosby
Yeah,
in
definitely.
the role. He looked of the sort... very much like my granddad in a way. Look, just in a suit, very tidy, very smart.
He got a timeless 50s look in his aesthetic. You know how he held himself. He felt of the period. You know, I think that was.
Yeah, and then Stuart as Phil. He was which would be the Danny Kaye character. He was sort of. His character was all over the place anyway, very energetic and very... the kind of clothes he wore was slightly more... it was a little bit more than normal.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, it wasn't classic, but casual classic.
Yeah, it's casual classic. Yeah, it's definitely 50s. It was cardigans, it was shirts, it was, you know...
Yeah.
it was khaki and...
Khakis?
Khakis, yeah. No, there was a lot of creams and khakis and sort of...
A lot of
creams and khakis.
Coffees and creams. But anyway, it was it was good. We have the two females.
Yeah.
We have Judy and
Grace.
Betty. Oh, Grace.
Well,
no,
yeah.
Betty.
Sorry, Judy and Betty.
Shut up. So we've got Natasha as Judy, Grace as Betty, and they work really well together.
Yeah, they worked really well, and you could tell they'd worked together a lot on this to make sure, because vocally everything was on point in the way I felt like the actual numbers they were.
Yeah, you weren't wrong there. I felt it as well. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, and I think we've not really talked about the songs too much, but
Not yet.
But they all performed them with all their abilities. You did, and I felt.
You mean vocal abilities?
Yeah, vocal abilities. I do think as well the four main characters did work well as a team, as well.
I think I said something at the time where, whilst they were all equally good and very strong performances, it felt like, for me, it needed to have been cast where those four were a bit more well known, I think, or something to bit more charismatic
and
actors in there, rather than it being those that we don't necessarily know of. That's probably controversial.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to come onto it with the costume later, and I'll talk a bit more about my thoughts on how that would improve things a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I want to stand out for me. Sandra Marvin was brilliant as Martha. Like,
I thought you were going to say something about what I said about the charismatic actors. I thought you were going to add on to that.
What am I adding on to that?
I don't know, the way you were talking, it was like you were drifting off to add on to that, but then you didn't. You went something completely different.
I just turned it
somewhere
off.
else, like turning that off. So, do you think, had the four ladies been a bit more well known?
Four ladies.
I mean, the four. Do you think the main four cast would have, if they'd have been a little bit more well known, would have been a bit more enticing?
Maybe it's down to direction, but because for me, if you're going to command a performance, I've seen Grace Moat command a performance because I've seen her in British Bake Off the musical, and I've seen her in And Juliet, so I know she's capable of being that commanding
but
performance.
I'm not on about it being capable, because they all were.
No.
Because this is billed as Irving Berlin's White Christmas, is this why they've not gone for any stars?
That's what I'm thinking. You know
what I mean?
for me,
Like
it's
the
they've not gone for
Pantays we do
names.
see.
Yeah, they've
You
not
know.
gone for names in the sense of celebrities because I think they're trying to create the Paramount Pictures aesthetic of it being.
But they had
characters.
names. Danny Kaye.
Well, they did.
Do you know what I mean?
They did, but we haven't really got names that maybe would come to Sheffield or would when they're already performing in West End shows that are on at Christmas at this point in time. You know, your Ruthie Henshaws of the world. And,
Who? I think we've got more well-known actors in the UK that are not just in London.
No, but what I'm saying is, it depends what type of actors you mean. Are you talking stage performers, or are you talking people that have been in TV more? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but obviously, for them to be well-known, there'd be TV actors as well.
Not always.
To be well-known,
Well, yeah,
with the general audience, because the general audience isn't going to be going to London to see these kind of shows that you're talking about.
No, but even in the productions that are touring, have got people that are famous for being
Okay, say like
performers.
Cluedo. When we went to see that, it had Michelle Collins and Thingybob as Professor Plum, right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, I said on that one...
I was going to say, if she was in this...
but would it have affected this production had it had...
I think
do you know what I mean? Stars in,
I think it would have disappointed
characters.
us because we'd have expected much more.
Would we?
Yeah, because we'd expect them to be... The problem is...
What about those that have been on Dancing on Ice and can act and then now can dance and sing? You know?
Are we putting an ice rink in this production then?
No, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But, you know, if they can...
No, I get that. I mean, personally, I disagree. I think it needs to be West End. Not West End. I think it needs to be stage performers in this production rather than actual celebrities, because I think that's the difference. You know, my view on some of the well-known performers have probably never been on TV.
Celebrities can't act?
I'm just not saying that. I'm saying that this type of production requires people who are musical performers that have actually done 7 shows a week, 5 weeks in a row to actually pull it off, to actually make it work and have the vocal ability or vocal strength, shall we say, to do musicals, which is not something... the problem is you might end up watching the understudies more because you've got a celebrity involved, because they cry off after halfway through a production. You know, that's just me.
I just thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah, no, it's worthwhile.
Right then, some others to shout out. So Sandra Marvin played Martha, and she had an amazing singing voice when she started singing. Oh God, what songs did she sing? Let Me Sing I'm Happy. Was that the one? Yeah, Let Me Sing I'm Happy, because
Yes,
the little
it was.
girl...
Yeah, it was.
Because a little girl, I think it was Ava Rothwell we saw as Susan. She came on and she gave another wonderful performance, and she re-sang that one.
I mean, for me, the whole ensemble, acting-wise, the whole production was well put together, and I don't think there was any bad links within the performance. I don't know if one of the things we noticed when we were in the interval was we discussed the train travelling scene, and that even though it was really good, there was a few moments where it was a little chaotic, where the 4 core members of the scene, the main cast, were all over the place. As in, they were seated distant from each other, whereas actually in the film they face each other.
Yeah,
they create a winter scene with the things on their table, and yes, it was good that they included more cast around them, but it didn't feel like they were the core of that piece.
No,
it felt more like an ensemble piece, and they were just people within the ensemble rather than it separating.
Yeah, which is a good point, because that's how I felt of the train thing.
Yeah,
that's what I said to you about why were they not facing each other. But then this takes me back again to them not casting probably celebrities as the four, because then you'd notice them four more, because now we're watching Irving Berling's White Christmas with a load of ensembles.
But
really,
for
aren't
me,
we?
this is where I'm going to talk costume in the next bit, where I think that the costume was wrong, because I think there was less focus on the aesthetics of each piece that set them apart from everybody else. And that comes down to staging as well. If you spend time actually making sure they feel separate to the rest of the production, then they start standing out as the leading roles, which in the film it does that. The set and the staging of it always draws focus to the actual four main characters.
Okay, and now when do you want to speak about that?
I'll do it now if you want.
Okay, so let me just say, I thought all the ensemble cast were excellent in their roles.
Yeah,
it was a brilliant performance. Everyone gave
really
their
was.
all.
Yeah.
I'm just questioning just the four leads in terms of having more well-known people for them to have stood out, because I do feel this was more like an ensemble cast, even with those who did those particular roles. Now, moving on to the costume.
Really?
Would you like to say all that again?
Yes. No, I think the...
What do we know?
No, I'm not going to. I think overall,
There weren't any name rules.
Well, in some ways there could have been, and then the others could have been different. Anyway, I think the aesthetics of the production could have been elevated to improve the production to a better level, really, because that's the only thing that sort of grated on me a little bit, is that everything was almost pastel shades for the whole production, and it was hard to make out the core four members of the cast, really. In the original film, there is a definite distinction between your four characters that are the main characters, and then the ensemble around them. They paint, every scene paints a picture in the film. This felt almost like they were blended in to the whole picture, so it was more like looking at a landscape than actually a portrait of those people. And I think that was that then doesn't encourage your eyes to look at the core members of the cast. You look at in a way you don't know what to look at, because you can't distinguish between that. And even if it's down to like the bags they have or the things they have, if there's striking colours or sharp colours, because in some of the scenes in the film there was scenes where the four main characters were all in black and red and everybody else was in purples and greens, and it's just a simple palette thing where if they'd have focused more on that, you would have drawn focus on how much more important these people are against the ensemble. And I think that was I felt like the glamour was turned down a little bit on the people that mattered, in a way. I think the finale of the production just felt flat, because everything was in this 50s hue of pastel, but the four main characters came out in what can only be described as dinner dresses and dinner suits, rather than the really bright, striking red and white ruffled Santa style costumes that you see in the film. It just sort of almost just fell down at that point for me. It didn't feel finale-esque like you'd see in the films or grand stage productions. It felt just a little bit lower, and I know, and I'm not saying they needed to redo every costume they've got, but there's access to so many of these costumes out there that you can get things without having to make them. It's just I just felt that would have then lifted the cast and your core four members of the characters to actually separate from everybody else. Because it's like when the general comes out in full regalia, he's the general because he stands out from everybody else, because his costuming looks different to everybody else, and I think that's what was missing.
Do you think that maybe they didn't want the forecore to stand out because, again, this was an ensemble piece?
Maybe so, but if you bill it as taking reference from the Paramount film, then you're setting yourself up for criticism in that way, because if you're listing everything of the original film,
however, okay, so this production was quite colourful, and whilst I agree with on some things, let me just set the scene here. The whole production was quite colourful, but not necessarily full in terms of the costume.
No,
but the costumes were colourful within themselves, right? Now, if you think the Holiday Inn, black and white, White Christmas went to colour, filmed in colour. Now, they were playing around with the colour to make it pop and make them shine out there.
Yeah.
Right? Did they record that so it was more colourful for if it was to be shown in black and white back in the day, for those who hadn't got colour? Mind you...
No, it's actually one of the first films that was done in colour professionally, as in a film that was done that could be shown in many theatres. The original White Christmas.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it was done in black and white.
No, I'm just saying it was one of the ones that started in... Well, it started in black and white, as in the film itself started in black and white and turned into colour as one of the first ones that was commercially available across...
Yeah, but they copied that within this show, because the very first scene in the men behind the TV was black and white as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what did you think of the very ending when they came down? The ladies came down in those giant ball gowns, because I felt that wasn't in fitting. That was more sort of like Cinderella-esque, Panto-esque thing.
It was,
it just seemed a bit odd. Like we was watching something that predated 1940s, 50s.
And I think this is where I'm going with the points I'm making, that it also felt more like a commercial scene that was done for, like when we had the commercial scene where they came down in almost drag costumes. That, for me, that those ball gowns detracted from the main forecast. It felt like they upstaged them more than the actual... If they'd have come down in something that was more 50s inspired rather than Cinderella inspired, it would have... They still could have been full skirts. They still could have been, similar in design.
They had proper corset on. But this is something out of the 1700s.
Yeah, it didn't feel right for... maybe they were trying to look like baubles, but it felt more disjointed.
They were wearing Regency gowns at the end of the day.
And I think then when you've got the main four members of the cast wearing dinner dresses and suits, that's why it just felt disconnected. That it was like, this is meant to be a filmed production. The whole point of this final scene is this is the televised bit that's going out from this hotel to the rest of the country as White Christmas. This is the iconic scene that everybody sees. And I thought it just dropped, I think, at the end. It was almost like we've seen this view of like some, like say, Edwardian ball gowns, and it just didn't. But that there's no reference to that in the 50s.
But even
really.
The hair, mind you, that's not hair. It's got like shower caps.
Well, they look like shower caps, yeah.
Or were they? Yeah, shower caps on it, but it did just look something from like a Georgette Hare Regency novel.
Yeah,
to be fair,
it did almost like Madonna's, like Vogue. When Madonna did Vogue and she was all Edwardian, it looked like it just looked.
I mean, fine if they were going to record it for going out. However, like in the original film, like you've mentioned, they're all wearing red and white, like Christmas and Santa and stuff like that, and that's probably how they should have ended it there, with the four of them dressed up like that to mirror image the ending of the film as well. And then those four would have stood out against these great big baubles of women floating around the stage.
And I think it's, for me, it's because it's also the...
Well, they just upstaged them, really.
It's also the sisters scene when they do sisters. They wore a 50s gym kit that was made out of lace rather than a full ankle length skirt as in the original film, and a lot of other intonations of doing this that reference the whole fan scene. And people in the 50s didn't show as much flesh as they did, and it felt more like that was maybe a seedier nightclub than actually they were in. They were in a jazz performance bar, and I think that was and I think those references almost matter when you're trying to portray a certain era and a nod to an original film. And then these things aren't. We're not talking costume ideas that are completely unavailable now, and they're not unachievable. And I think like you say, I do think it was a little bit let down at the end when you're ending with something that feels a lot less iconic. And it's all right to rework things, and it's all right to do things in a different style, because what we've seen is a production that was reworked really well on stage. It was really worked. The cast and the crew did a lot and made it look really good. It's just that this would have elevated it to the next level, I feel.
See, I didn't mind the girls wearing what they wore for that sister thing. That didn't particularly bother me. And I think all the costumes I thought was okay. It was just the ending bothered me with these great big dresses that they were wearing, and the fact that they overshadowed the four leads at the front.
It's almost like the four got in the way because the skirts are that big. The four at the front actually were almost in the way.
And the male ensemble, they wore just a simple white penguin suit in a way, and they were doing the tap dancing, so they looked all nice and silver and gold.
Yeah, exactly.
They looked, nice and tidy. And so the other, the leads, the lead ensembles, were neither here nor there, to be fair.
And actually, they didn't even really wear anything overly matching, so it felt a little. It didn't feel.
Did they have their? I think the men had their uniform on, didn't they?
Yeah.
I can't really scroll over to see. Yeah.
And I think for me, it's the fact that the dresses stand out. The almost Edwardian big hoops dresses stand out more than the actual main cast.
Agreed. I thought there was a double act of girls, which were we think it was Emma Johnson and Demir Lindsay Walker. I think it was them two, but it could have been Lucy Young.
Yeah,
not quite sure because of the cast list doesn't really say who played what for the ensemble. But there were two girls who were the advertisement actors at the very beginning, selling the shampoo via the acting in the advert. And they were also part of the whole crew because they were both after Bob and Phil at the same time, whilst the two female leads were wanting something more long term, but they were more like the good time girls in a way.
Yeah.
But each time they were on set, they sort of stole the scene as well because they were quite free loving. The energy was quite high, very fun and quirky, and they had their own little bit of a banter. Yeah. And put downs and things like that. And they very much
attention. Yeah, and they very much turned it on every time they appeared as those and not in the ensemble. So they stood out really well. There was a presence, you could tell they were on stage.
Yeah. So
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, what the tech is this? I mean, technically wise, the revolves work really well. As in, it's very difficult sometimes to not focus as much on those revolves and make sure they stop where they need to, make sure they line up, make sure all the things happen where they should. I mean, it was lit well. I mean, there was nothing majorly technical in the sense of anything outstanding. I mean, it was all orchestrated well. So
let's just talk about what kind of technical things they had. They had the revolve, so there was two revolves there. They had cables that came down from the rafters, which picked up the Christmas tree right at the end.
Yeah.
There was also 2 cables that came down with a bench on.
Yeah, they also
And they had 2 cables that brought the barn doors...
the barn
not
frame.
the barn door, the barn frame up from the edging of the
I mean,
stage.
there was a moment with the bench that came down. I did think it started to swing quite a lot, and I was like,
Yeah, you saw they actually tried to steady it.
He's tried to steady
Yeah.
it a few times, but then that's the only issue with dropping something from such a high height that you've got to. The rope is quite a long distance, so you swing like that would do that. I think it was clever used. There was no overuse of things like dropping scenery in and things like that. That worked really well, to bring the ceiling down a little bit, so you focus on the production at the bottom.
And in terms of the lighting, I felt they used a lot of stage lighting.
Yeah.
Especially for the steps that came out for the tap dancing scene on there. You also had the lighting coming out of the fridge.
Yes, you did.
When that was opened, the whole aspect with the TV, the candles and stuff they had on the tables that went around. It was all done subtly and gave a lovely warmth feeling to it, whilst also being slightly edgy.
Yeah.
Different.
And it felt fresh, and I think that's the thing. It didn't feel... Nothing felt... I mean, for me, what was nice is they'd still had some traditional fixings when they brought out the lights, the light on the podium, on the wheeled podium to show that they were in the 50s. They'd recreated a light as part of the rehearsal process that was working, and that looked good. I suppose the one thing.
What do you mean? Like
when they
lighting, like a whole
one of the
set thing.
Yeah, when the caretaker or whatever brought the light on that was like for rehearsals, it was like an old
with the barn doors.
one with the barn doors on it and stuff.
Yeah,
barn doors in the barn.
That's right.
I suppose the other thing I'd mention is I thought the sound wise it was really well blended with vocals and the live band, and the way when you do a musical there's so many microphones involved and there's so many chances for things to go wrong and feedback and all that sort of those things that can be worrying, especially when you've got a lot of dance involved. You've got a lot of chance for their microphone packs to start falling off or causing problems. So there was none of that. They'd thought really well on that, and they enhanced the vocals well, but it felt like they were reinforcing their voices rather than over amplifying everything. It felt well. It felt like you were they were singing on stage rather than at the back of the room.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed with how 2 sets of pianos we used, and they were really playing the pianos.
Yes,
and the
exactly.
sound didn't sound like it was coming from the pianos as well.
No, exactly.
I wonder if it was like done through some sort of they were still playing the notes, but it was done where the music were coming from somewhere else, but it was using their notes that they were playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like like some kind of like mechanical device where yes, you press your notes on the thing, but it sends a signal somewhere else for them to reenact that on a proper piano out off stage.
I mean, you can get electrical pianos that have got the same keys as a grand now that are literally the size of the keys.
Yeah.
So they can use those and then transmit the sound somewhere else.
Yeah.
So if they use that, they built a grand piano that looked like one, but actually the only thing that was in there was an electric piano top.
Yeah.
It was just that were actually doing it, because
They
they are
must
more
have
and
done
more
that.
convincing.
Yeah.
And they look real because they've got the same aesthetics.
And I was watching
from the outside.
the woman play the actual keys on the grand piano.
Yeah, exactly.
And I knew for a while that she was hitting the right notes.
But also, you could tell she was the woman who was playing upstairs in the orchestra, because she only came down for those scenes.
Yeah,
she
but
didn't actually
for her to play that.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way that could have been done watching her fingers move
exactly.
as well. So she must have hit the right notes.
Yeah.
So she must have hit the actual notes.
Yeah,
for it to be.
Yeah, I've got a feeling she was playing live at that point.
I do, but it didn't come out of
But then they
where
can
it
have
should have
wireless
been, I think.
receivers built inside
That's
the
what
actual...
I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. That's how I think they must have done that. I'm being detective here.
Go steady. Right, Hetty Wainthrope. Are you investigating?
I am. Is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of technical stuff?
Don't think so.
Let's move it on.
Let's do it.
And now it's time for
Rewind, rewatch.
For me, I think I must see the snow one with the whole train because I thought that was brilliant. I just want to see that again. I just really liked how that was done.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good.
Yeah, for me, it's the train scene and it's the tap scene, the ensemble tap scene, because I thought they did that really well.
Too much dancing on the piano for me and jumping on and off it. That was giving me...
Your anxiety was going through the roof.
I was getting issues. You know what I mean? It's like, no, if you're going to jump, make sure you've got...
That floor's shaking too much.
Yeah, comfortable shoes so you land properly. And oh, yeah, no, I couldn't do that. Watch that one again. But yeah, no, I... Definitely the snow one in the train.
Good plan.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say...
Call this a show?
Summary then, Richard. To sum up, White Christmas, before we go on to the scores.
A well put together production with a lot of promise and a great ensemble cast. Just my few little comments on the costuming, but other than that, a great production.
Thoroughly enjoyable. It was quite gripping, very entertaining, great musical numbers, great choreography, and I did actually enjoy it. I'll be intrigued to see the four of them get cast as more high-known celebrities, I think. But other than that, no, I quite liked what I saw, and everyone involved did a really, really good job of this one. Scores then please, Richard, for White Christmas. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a snow-dazzlingly dreamy Christmas production, and 1 being more like dreaming of my last Christmas rather than a white one. What's it going to be?
I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
Pardon?
I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
Good diction there. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10.
So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
I'm going to give this a pleasant applause.
I'm going to give this a pleasant applause as well. So there we are. That's our discussion of White Christmas. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
And opinions.
on many theatrical delights in future episodes.
If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage, Downstage.
On meeting singing sisters Betty and Judy, they are intermediate. There are. I nearly said intermediately.
intermediates.
They're intermediately spitting, not fully spitting.
Spitting or spitting?
Just halfway through. On meeting.
Halfway through what?
Intermediate. On meeting singing sisters Betty and Judy. Are you going to stop laughing? On meeting singing. Fuck off. On meeting singing sisters, when the four wind up performing a gig to when the four wind up performing a gig together at Vermont Remote. Oh my god, too many words. When the four wind up performing a gig together at remote Vermont.
At
Vermont.
A
Oh, you're
remote.
missing the A, that's why. But the place is on the verge of bankruptcy thanks to an but the place is on the verge of bankruptcy thanks to an unseasonal lack of snow. Can the talented foursome transform the lodger's fortunes in time for Christmas? Former soldiers turned successfully showbiz duo Paul and Bob.
Successful showbiz. So there we are. That's our discussion of White Christmas. We hope you found it insightful. What is it? Did you forget, or was it because of the way I said White Christmas?
I could have had fun with that. So there we are. That's our discussion of White Christmas in the middle of it.
White Christmas.
No, just me saying the voice like really monotone, flat in the middle of it, like we've literally not recorded any of it.
Scores then, please, Richard, for White Christmas. Sorry, I just burped. Scores then, please. Sorry, just stop copying me.
Sympathy cough.
Scores then, please, Richard, for White Christmas. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a snow... Oh no, my phone's gone off.
Bad signal in the snow. 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6.
That's more like it. Why is that not recording then? Blah 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 blah.
Can you hear me now?
I've took a lot of pain away from me. Go on then. We're going to say something.
Well, I can do. Are we ready to actually record the actual properties?
The actual properties of the actual production.
The actual stuff now. Are we legit?
Yeah, but you're quiet.
Is that better?
That's more like
Is that better?
Is that better or worse?
Is that better or with? I mean, better with or without?
Without.
Okay, so I've got a bit
Is
of
that better with or without?
It's not doing your eye test, isn't it? Is that better with or without? Is it slide 1 or slide 2? But then I always end up seeing 3 slides because the bit in between, it's like, that's the one. Oh, you just moved it.
Always
Just
about
it.
the in-between though, isn't
It's
it?
always the in-between one. And I'm thinking, oh, look, just leave it.
And then don't get the lasers out because it's going to hurt my eyes.
Well, they either bring it forward or push it further away sometimes.
Or up and down. I'm recording.
Well, you said that last time.
I am now.